this is B from Sorcery Soap, and today I wanted to show you what I was up to. Ooh, I'm trying not to make too much noise. Okay, so I have lots of ideas all the time, and I forget some things that I've done. But I have stencils, which I designed for soap. The stencil itself is about as big as the bar of soap, give or take how big your bar is. And I'm revisiting these again because they're a tool, and I remembered I had them, and I was like, oh, I haven't done that in a while. So I have these soaps here. That's a bad side here. Let me show you that. There's a gradient, a nice soft brown gradient. And let me see what fragrance that is. Hang on just a second. So that's mahogany, coconut, plus flannel. It's a blend I made, but both fragrances come from Midwest Fragrance Company. Highly recommend them. I've had such good luck with them. Anyway, this is my practice soap. I have a lot of practice soaps, believe it or not. And so this soap, I did a soft gradient with a mixture of micas, and this is the discoloration of the soap, of the fragrance oil itself, but I really like this. And I can't always get that beautiful gradient, but I do try quite regularly. Anyway, it kind of this whole bar gave me a feeling of the woods and nature and sort of northern part of the state where I live. And I just went there last weekend, and it's so beautiful, the pines and the river. Well, there's a major river that runs through there, and I hiked along there, and it's glorious. And I guess the thing that strikes me so much about it is that it's completely unaffected by intervention, and it just takes care of itself. And I kind of think that's how we're built too, somewhat. Anyway, so I thought I wanted layers of, here, let's see if you can see that a bit better. I wanted layers of trees, because that's how the trees were up there. There's on the mountain and the hillside, there's just layers and layers of trees, and just putting one thing of trees didn't seem to cut it for me. So anyway, again, I forget like all the things I've created. I have a ton of designs. I can't even believe it. And I was hot on the stencil kick a couple years ago, and that lasted for about a year. And then I set those down to make stamps, and that's been going on for the last couple years too. And then I just paused on that for a minute, which we're going to open the stamp doors again at the end of the month of July. So you have an opportunity. It'll take about 2 weeks for you to get your stamps, but trust that we will send them. We've always sent every single one. I just have to order them, and it takes a minute for them all to, because I don't always know. There's hundreds of designs, and it would take a lot for me to have them in stock, and then I don't know which ones you like and which ones I like. And anyway, it's easier if you just tell me with your order, and then I'll order them for you. Anyway, so this one is my practice. So I have a light gray in the background, a darker gray, and I wanted to show you. I'm going to put one on top of here and sort of step you through it a bit. So the other thing I wanted to point out is in these stencils, they're pretty durable. You can use them for other things. You don't have to just use them for soap, but these seem to be the most reasonable thing to use for soap. So anyway, let's see. This is one of my practice ones. Maybe I'll do that right about here, just a little bit, because but this should be in the background. These are bigger. So let me think this through. The other thing I wanted to say, I could just do this one here, was that one probably work, but I don't really want to cover those up. Those look nice. Maybe here. I'll do that there. So these stencils, you can just wash them off, but if you need one, so let's say you're using it and you get soap on it and you want to use it again, but you only have one, just, the soap is soap, so just take a little toothbrush or brush that you've designated for your soap stuff, and scrub it off with a little bit of warm soapy water or whatever, and then pat it dry. Don't rub it, because then all these little pieces will come up and then you'll fray them and they're harder to get down again. Here, I'll show you one I frayed. This is a practice material, so it's not as durable as the printed ones, the ones I have manufactured, but you can see how it's a little frayed. It still works, but anyway, that came off of my cutter. And then these are the manufactured ones I have with our logo, our old logo on there and stuff. Okay, so let's do this. I think this one will work, or maybe I could do the reindeer right there. Oh, maybe. I think the reindeer might show up pretty well, or even, let's see. I could do the stag right out front. Ooh, that looks pretty awesome. Let's do that guy, because that's pretty fine. So I was at a fair, gosh, this time last year, I think, is the state fair here. And I think I've told this story before. Oh, heck, probably not everybody's heard it, so I'll tell it again. So I was at a fair, and my husband saw this soap that had this gold stag on here. Let's see if you can see that. Anyway, had this gold stag on it, and he looked at me and he said, look, because we knew that I designed this, because it's exactly the same. And I looked up and I was like, oh, that's so cool, right? And I walked over to him and said hi, and they were just like tickled to talk to me, which I was like, what? That's so weird, but cool and weird. Anyway, so I ended up making a friend, and that was really fun. And then I told her about another soap maker that I knew that was there, and I told her to come visit, and she did, and she came visit, and she met a new soap maker friend, and so it was very cool. I don't know if this is going to show up, but it'll kind of show up like overall. So let's see. So such delicate work right now. I want it thick enough so that it comes through there. Anyway, I'm getting sort of Christmassy, I think, trying to get my Christmas stuff going on. So when you do this layering thing, you have to let each layer dry a bit, otherwise it'll lift off. So then I give it a little spray with alcohol, because the alcohol releases a bit on the edges somehow. I'm not sure how it all works, but it does. So let's see. Nice and slow. Okay. Oh, I kind of like that. I don't know, I'll do a whole bunch of them like that, but that's kind of interesting. Here, let's see. I'm interested. That's good enough for me. So if I lay another, okay, if I lay this on, let's say I want another stag, if I lay that on top, this is going to pick that up because it's not dry, so I have to leave that to dry. So these have to go in phases. And I think that's part of the reason why I didn't show it originally, because of the phases part, and I didn't think anybody else would be interested. But now that I'm revisiting, there's a whole nother level for me that I didn't see before, so I thought I would share that. So I wondered what you're working on. I mean, it is July. It seems like a reasonable thing to do to get ready for Christmas, because you have to put the soaps out at Thanksgiving, so they have to be cured 2 months before that, and then you have to have time to package. So I look back at my old stuff, my old soap designs and things, and this is usually the time that I'm getting ready, but it always seems weird to do that, to get ready at this time of the year. So, and to have, inspiration to do Christmas stuff at this time of the year. So let's do a couple more. Oh, I'm so pleased with this. So the thing about gradient pours is that if you have, that's one of the reasons why I test my soaps with a gradient pour, because I can really feel it, not by touching it, but experiencing it, I guess. What the fragrance oil behaves like, because I can see it. It takes a long time. Well, okay, so let me explain to those who don't make soap. If you put the fragrance oil in your cold process soap, I say moves or accelerates a bit, it starts to thicken faster than normal. That's all that means, is to, and there's varying degrees of that. Some accelerate so fast that it turns to soap immediately and like hard, and you can't get it out of your bowl. Other times it just moves a bit faster and becomes soap faster than you'd like it to. So there's a kind of a tricky thing you have to do in order to, you can't stick blend it too much, you know. And I know I'm leaving a lot out, so I don't know what you know, obviously, but it becomes a bit tricky. Anyway, so when I test a new fragrance oil to see how well it'll behave, I push it. It's sort of like redlining a car to see exactly where it goes. And when a fragrance oil, even a blend of fragrance oils, does this, like lets me do a really soft pour, I know I have lots of time to work with it. So any other design I can make with it, because the gradient to me is the hardest pour to do accurately. And what I mean by accurate is where you barely see any or don't see any lines at all, and it looks like the bar is spray painted. And this, when I first started making soap, baffled me. And I just thought, oh, isn't that cool? I want to do that. Of course, you know, go right to the hardest thing. Anyway, so these are, let's see, these are sheep tracks, but I'm going to use them as deer. I have sheep, I have, let's see, I have a reindeer right here. These are reindeer tracks. Oh, I guess I could do those. I have those clean. Okay, let's see. So this is all nice and smooth, by the way. This is about the smoothest that, and people ask, how do you get it not to lift off? And I'm not really sure how it doesn't not lift off. I mean, it does if you don't put it down thick enough, but we'll just watch and see how it does a little bit sometimes. I think the trick is making sure the edges are a little bit cleaner. So these aren't very thick, so you know, you're basically just given the idea of it. And other people have asked, how long does it last? Well, it's not an impression, and it's not a soap that goes soap material that goes all the way through the bar. So the first few washes, it's just going to wash off, but so does mica stamping and every other thing just wash off. So, and it should wash off, it's soap. So it's just fun in a way to get some attention towards your soap that isn't, you know, the reason I started the stencils is because I make really complicated soaps, and not everybody wants to take the time to do that. So I thought, well, what else could I do to help? And everything that I've done is about trying to help other people do their soaps and have clever ideas. Okay, so you can see through this. Now we'll know if I cut enough. You basically have to break that on the surface. Probably don't need to be as fiddly as I am, but I am on. So that's just alcohol to smooth down the surface, to try and break those edges a bit. And if you go slow enough, usually they break. There. And so I have a little bit up. So I just take a brush with some water and smooth those down. Oh, that one didn't come off. That's okay. I don't mind. So that one didn't come off. Let's see if I can get that. There. I sit there too soon. think you might be able to hear my stomach growling. Anyway, I'd like to hear what you're all working on. It's been a weird year. Well, every year for the last bazillion years has been weird, unpredictable, not like the last, all that. So, but in my realm, things are quite nice. And personally, I've had a lot of sort of questions, but I'm back at it. And I had a chat with my moderators this morning for the Sorcery Creations group on Facebook. And they're lovely humans. They are just lovely spirit humans. And, you know, they always tell me that I inspire them, but they just gave me a big dose of inspiration today. So I just took that off, didn't I? Anyway, let's see if we can fix that. They gave me a big dose of inspiration today, and so I thought, oh, I'm going to use that to benefit and put down a video, make a video. Because I have a philosophy, if you don't have anything nice to say, you probably shouldn't say anything. And so I've not felt like I had anything really nice to say because I was in my own troubles, which is silly. So, I mean, not entirely, you know what I mean, I think. Okay. Definitely not perfect, but better than not trying. There. So I did that. This sort of, I used the same, and I cut it out as soap dough, and then I placed them on top because I thought that was kind of cool. I made some soaps like this, and I called them shadow animals because there's some depth to it. I mean, I don't think, and I keep saying this, I don't think that we've actually even, we just barely started with the craft of soap and soap dough and all the possibilities. And, you know, when I first started soap, I saw people's swirls, and I just thought, oh my gosh, that's so cool. How do they do that? Like, I was baffled by it all. And then I studied for like every day for a year. Every day before I even started doing soap, or before I even bought my supplies. And I started with melt and pour first, and that wasn't good enough. And one of the reasons I started with melt and pour first is because I was scared of lye, scared of sodium hydroxide, and it was just basically I didn't know enough, which is, you know, fair. Anyway, so I watched people make soap, and I was just, I was so intrigued by it all, you know. I thought it was beautiful and fascinating and all this stuff. So, and I saw Zahida with handmade soap, and she'd done the butterfly swirl. And I was enthralled. That was it. And I never in a million years thought I could do that. And to this day, I've not really done any of it, but not like that. But I used it as a stepping off point. And then I ended up talking to her, and I was like, wow, that's amazing that she'd talk to me. And she's a lovely human, and she does really cool things. She makes a lot of bath bombs and things, and she's so, the thing about her is that's so wonderful is that she's very neat-handed and detail-minded and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so I got on her list and bought some of her soaps one time, and her soaps are beautiful. And what was so intriguing to me is that I really loved her samples. I'm doing two things at once, so I'm not that focused. And I don't really like that. It's just too sticky. Yuck. It's too sticky. I can't use that. Her samples were just as neat-handed and clever as anything else, and that inspired me. It's weird, you can just get inspiration from a variety of different things. So I just pulled out a chunk of soap that was a little bit too soft for me, and then I just set it aside and revisit it later, and this is what it needs to look like. That's less sticky. And I want to do this green. This is called Savage Green. I think we have some on the website. I think we do. Yeah, because I pulled it out of inventory. I probably should fix that. Now you know why we run out of soap dough sometimes. Anyway, so that's what it should look like versus this is a little bit too soft. I mean, that'll come around if I leave that white soap dough for a while. And I come back and revisit it. The other day I was watching one of Tree Marie's videos. She just makes the most lovely videos, truly. Tree Marie Soapworks, take a look at her channel. She's so amazing. Anyway, so I was watching one of her videos and I watched her mix micas on a plate, like a clear glass plate with oils. And for whatever reason, I'm like, how long have I been making soap? 10 years? I totally forgot about that. That is really fun. I used to do it. And so this last time when I poured these gradients, I mixed all my micas that way with a little bit of oil. And the only caveat is that I added oil to my recipe, about a tablespoon, which threw my recipe off because I don't make a whole ton of. I mean, if you were putting 20 pounds, if you're making 20 pounds of soap or, whatever, and you add a tablespoon, it's probably not going to do much. But if you're making like 2 or 4 pounds and you add a tablespoon, it can do, and it did for me. And so my soaps were a little bit soft coming out of the mold is because I added that oil and changed my recipe a bit. But in the future, and I used to do this, and I totally forgot that I used to do this because I got complacent, but I just take a tablespoon out of the oil batch of the recipe and then I mix my micas. But what she does is, and what I do now again, is take a palette knife and put the mica and the oil and mix it together. And first of all, it's quite relaxing. It's lovely to do. And the other thing is that that it helps mix the micas really well so that when you do your pour, you don't get speckles. So totally forgot about that. So let's do this really hard one together. I'll show you how I do it. So I want layers, so I'll do this today. I'll leave it set until tomorrow, and then I'll come back at it when I know that it's dried. These little lines sometimes are a little bit tricky. I get caught up between the idea of doing things super fast for people that have like large batches and stuff, but that's not me. And I guess I just try to appeal to too many people at one time. And that's silly because I can only do what I can do, And this is my sort of beautiful place, is doing a lot of details. I revisited the Wizard of Oz soap this last week. I made a soap specifically for that because I made the little creatures, the little Wizard of Oz guys, out of soap, and then I did a little gradient green pour for the background, And I'd been trying to embed well, I did do the embed with the help of a friend of mine, and she made the yellow brick road in soap dough, and I put it inside, but the bars turned out way too big. And I was like, well, that's just, I don't like relying on other people to, do my thing. But then I was like, well, maybe I'll make a disc. And then I kept going through all this and making it harder than it needed to be. So I finally just decided I'm just going to stick to what I, stay in my lane kind of thing, and stick to what I like to do. And so, I didn't put it all together. I made the soap and I didn't put it all together in my mind even, or how I was going to do it. I just kind of let it sit and think about it. And then I keep saying that, it came together very naturally and easily, and something I can duplicate again and again with pleasure and without relying on other people too much. So that made me really happy. Okay, so there's a lot of tricky little parts here if I want them to release. So I need to take the soap. I don't want to take it off the middle, but I want to take it off the edges so that it lets go. I don't know, does that make sense? Okay. That's just alcohol. I want it smooth because once I get it down, I can't really do this as easily as I can do it here. So let's see if I did right. You can see where it starts to tear a bit. I want all those little details that coming out. Okay. They don't have to be perfect because nobody else is going to see the stencil or what it looks like before. Oop. I don't want it to lift off. There we go. That guy, come out. Let me do it this way. See that stubborn little branch? Oh well. Not going to mess with it. There we go. So then what I'll do is let that dry, and this is just water, and let that dry, and then stencil darker and darker until I get to the foreground. Sometimes when you make a really cool thing, you think, well, for me, I shouldn't say you because I don't know what you think, but for me, I make something really cool and I always think I have to outdo myself. That's silly. Sometimes it just can be like this, just a nice soap. Because, my favorite soaps in the shower, the ones I pick, I usually pick on the fragrance, and then generally pick on the fragrance. Sometimes I pick on the color and whatever. And all that sort of decoration is incidental. I don't mind. I mean, it's just like, yeah, it smells really nice. I made this the other day. So it was a practice. And I have that. And I love the smell of this. This is grapefruit and mint. It's one of my favorite. Anyway, that was a practice. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with this, so I'll keep this bar for myself. Wasn't sure if I liked this shape. I was copying a stamp that I have. I mean, obviously it's not exact the thing, but I was copying a stamp, and it doesn't have enough character. It's a lot of work, and so I think I'll take a pass, but I'll use it for my shower. So anyway, so that's that. Don't fuss. I'm fussing. Okay. So I hope this helped. I hope it maybe inspires you to get going on some soaps for Christmas. And that's pretty much all I know. So I hope you have a good day. Thanks. Bye.